Hello, welcome back to the writer Albert Lanier channel. I, of course, am the writer Albert Lanier, here with another edition of Outro, the show about shows, the show dealing with shows, the show of shows. And the show I was on recently, a YouTube podcast, I believe, certainly a YouTube channel called the Lady Luck Club. That's the Lady Luck Club. And I was there to discuss an individual by the name of Umar Johnson. Now, he's someone that I normally wouldn't talk about because I had written a piece about him back in July of 2020 on my former blog at Medium. It's still up at medium.com. So it's still up if people want to take a look at it. The name of the article is Catch Him If You Can, The Life and Lies of Umar Johnson. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing a cap or this cap on this episode, it's because the Chicago Cubs are in the playoffs. Hopefully, they'll stay in the playoffs. They've won at least one game. I think they lost another. But the Cubs are one of my teams in Major League Baseball. The other team is the Boston Red Sox, which are also in the playoffs. I don't have a Boston Red Sox hat. I got to get one of those, at some point. But I do have this one. It actually is a World Series cap. I got this as a gift from one of my family members. So this is actually not your regular Chicago Cubs cap, which would be red. It's gold because it's a World Series. I had this for a while. You could tell that actually the statement or whatever was attached to it had fallen off already. So this is a World Series Chicago Cubs cap, not a regular standard boilerplate Chicago Cubs cap. So I just wanted to note that before moving on with outro. So I'm in a good mood this week. I'm in a good mood. Whether I'll stay in a good mood, I don't know. It's a different story. But I guess maybe that's part of the reason I'm in a good mood is Cubs are in the playoffs. The Red Sox are in the playoffs. And I guess being in that good mood helped because, unfortunately, hello to those in the chat. Unfortunately, for the first time in quite a long time, I actually there were some problems with this episode. It was a bit difficult. It was a slow link, and then I was popping in and out because this was being done on a YouTube channel. But managed to get up and it was stable, both sound and image was stable. So I was on the show for about an hour. But then my phone overheated, so I had to go back out and then turn it off and then turn it on again and then eventually come back. Sorry, there's a let's see. So anyway, there were some tech issues which I never experienced. That I've come back to doing YouTube interviews or interviews on YouTube shows. I haven't had any issues. I did a show last week, which you can go to the episode and check that out, the Kimberly Cloud Show, which is in Seattle. I had a great time on the show. My thanks again to Kimberly Cloud for having me on. But that was on YouTube, no problems. I haven't really had any problems since I've come back. I mean, there was an issue with the link, I guess, because it's EV Mux. When I was on Thursday's things, was it about a month or nearly 2 months ago? But that was really kind of minor. So unfortunately, with this, it was unusual in that there were some tech issues. But we got on the show, and I think she had some aspects going on. I think a lighting pole she had a lighting bar or a lighting pole break off. So she had lighting issues. So she had to do it as an avatar. So I want people to understand. The reason I say that is to understand that when you go and see the the see the episode. Normally, I don't talk about such things because when I go and I do an interview, things usually go according to plan and there's little, if any, problems. But anytime there are problems, I should point it out. And I find that it's very different for me now because I'm on a promotional tour, because I'm on a promotional campaign. You're going and you're promoting your own outlets, and I'm promoting even my podcast. So you want to be, you have to understand, since you're trying to get people to subscribe and get people to check out your outlet. If you're on, you want things to work out in regards to the promotional process. Things are going to happen. But again, I was in a good mood. Cubs are in the playoffs, and the Red Sox are in the playoffs. So I'm pretty happy. So I'm in a good mood, and I was in a good mood doing the show. I think the show I had a good time doing the show. And she seems like a fun lady, the lady that runs the Lady Luck Club. And it was an interesting interview for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think it was interesting because this is only the second time in 5 years that I talked about Umar Johnson, who, of course, I did the article, Catch Him If You Can, The Life and Lies of Umar Johnson. You can check that out at medium.com. You can go to medium.com/ at the Dr. 50. That's medium.com/ at the Dr. 50 if you want to check it out. And so we did get to talk a bit about Johnson. He's someone I've rarely talked about. There's, because I don't do interviews about him or much anything or anything or much of anything else that isn't related or tied to my newsletters or my podcast. So I hate to use the term brand, but my brand is film and movies and cinema and apparently sports too, um, since I'm also doing call-ins to a show in California now, and so I'm doing that on Mondays. Um, well, someone in the chat was saying, what was I talking about with? I think your syntax is. Oh, your syntax is terrible. Syntax is terrible. Somebody in the chat said, "What you was talking about, Johnson?" Yeah, I know what you're. I know what you're trying to say. Oh, it's one of those. I think it's a wannabe troll here. I don't get trolls here on this channel, thank goodness. But well, what I would say to this person in the chat, number one, go and check out the interview. It's at the Lady Luck Club channel, um, and you can check that out. And you can go to the channel and check it out. I'll of course repeat that later on in this episode, but go ahead and check it out, and you'll find out what I have to say about Johnson. What I would say right now, what little I can say, because I don't want to give away too much. So one of the most, I think one of the things that was unusual was I got to actually see the audience for this, because I've come back to doing interviews on YouTube channels and shows. So I actually got to kind of engage a little with the audience after I did the interview. She still was, I think she was doing a wrap up segment or a wrap up a portion of her show. So, and I got to kind of talk to the audience, got to go in the chat. when I get interviewed on a show, I never have any idea of the audience. Never do. Whether it's a YouTube show, because I've just come back to doing YouTube shows, or any other type of show. If I'm doing a radio show, I have no idea what the audience is. If I'm doing if I'm doing a podcast, of course, no clue. Um, I have no idea. There's some weird guy in the yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about. So I never get to deal with audiences. In 15 years of being interviewed on shows, I have no idea what an audience thinks of it. I never think in terms of audiences. Partly because if I go on somebody's show, that's their show. And it's, their baby. It's what they're what they do. And it's not my concern, it's not my job to think about the audience. The only time I think about an audience is if I'm doing a show on YouTube, because of course you can go and check out the count, right? How many views it got. So like if I'm on a podcast, I guess I could go somewhere and check out how many downloads there were. I don't do that. I have no idea. I just go and do the shows, especially these days. Like I did 3 interviews last week. I was busy. And so I had a call in this week on a show, which I guess I'm doing every week. And I did this interview with Lady Luck Club, which got postponed. It was supposed to be on Tuesday, went to Wednesday. So let me just briefly at this point. So I wanted to bring that out. And the audience with the Lady Luck Club channel was extremely polite. They were extremely polite. I mean, they were so polite and so complimentary and so generous. So the audience there was very kind. And it was a rare opportunity because I never talk to audiences. I have no idea what people think about if I'm on a show. First of all, because I'm just a regular person going on a show, going on a podcast, going on a radio show. I'm not famous. I'm not well known. I'm not a star, not anything. I'm just a writer. So, but the audience for the Lady Luck Club, I got the rare opportunity to see the audience. They were very complimentary and very polite, very well-mannered people, at least from what I saw in the chat. With chats and internet spaces, most people I always say that these are like, what would the term be? Lie detector tests. Like they're like sodium pentothal. That's the real expression. They're like truth serum. And the people there were remarkably polite and well-mannered and very kind. So what I want to say to Lady Luck Club in terms of the channel is you seem to have a very nice audience. Everyone there seemed very polite and well-mannered, and they seemed very, very well behaved. That was very important. I mean, I think it's been a long time since I've seen such a well-behaved audience online. So to the Lady Luck Club, I don't know if she'll be looking at this. I compliment you on your audience. I really do. I don't get a chance to see audiences or know about audiences or anything. I have no clue in any interview I do. That was a rare opportunity, and they were very kind to me, and they were very polite. So I thank the people in the chat of the Lady Luck Club channel for their very kind words and very nice things they had to say about me. I really appreciate that. As for Umar himself, I don't really want to talk too much about it because you're supposed to go there and take a look at the show and see that. It was the second time, like I said, in 5 years that I've talked about Umar. I wrote the piece in 2020. What I did get to talk about a little, I'll talk about one thing I'll get to talk about a little. one thing I'll get to talk about a little. I was, because we got into why I wrote the piece. And the reality with Umar was I never wanted to write a piece on Umar Johnson, or Jermaine Shoemaker, which is his real name. I never wanted to write about the guy. But there was something about him that was compelling. There was something about him that was interesting, intriguing. There was something about him that really kind of stood out. And I think what stood out was that to me, he was weird. Um, I mean, I don't know any other way of saying it. Now, I have to be honest, as a biracial person, I come from a multicultural background, or environment, I should say. And I wasn't used to men where I grew up and in my milieu and in my experience addressing women as, gorgeous or queen or dressing them in a more aggressive way. And so, from my cultural experience, I guess as a mixed race person, and in my experience, I deal with women in a very kind of in a more formal way. I've always dealt with women in a more formal way and in a more mannered way, in a more polite way. But Umar struck me as odd, primarily because he supposedly is a psychologist and a mental health professional. And though I do not know anything about mental health professionals personally, um, I didn't, I've never had any dealings with them. I never had any, um, I never had any personal experiences, social experiences, um, with them. So what little I do know about them is from television and have seen people interviewed or conducting themselves. Based on what I've seen, he didn't strike me as any mental. He didn't strike me as the picture of how a mental health professional should and really does act. And so I was put off by that, in terms of his treatment of women and his demeanor toward women, his behavior toward women. Also, his overall behavior. He seems to lack any decorum as not only a man, but as a professional. And also, he lacks etiquette and protocol. So, Umar Johnson seems to be without decorum, without etiquette, and without protocol. And again, I don't know if that's a cultural aspect. From what I see, his behavior, I look at it this way. I don't know what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. As a biracial person, his behavior in the environments I've been in would be unacceptable. Might be comical. To me, it seems comical and farcical and, and humorous. And, well, I should say comical, farcical, and then maniacal. But I don't, I think people might laugh or they might, those that aren't offended might just look at it as somebody who's trying to be, I don't know, trying to be gain attention, becoming an attention whore or something like that. I don't quite know. Um, but where I came from and in my environments, that wouldn't be acceptable behavior or anything close to acceptable behavior. And also his behavior on stage, is the way he addresses people and conducts himself as a speaker and as a he doesn't he doesn't put forth any. There's no gravitas to him, to Umar Johnson. There's no professional sense of decorum or etiquette on stage. No sense of protocol on stage. He seems someone completely. He seems like a maniacal motivational speaker, like a deranged lecturer. It's very strange. So those are the impressions that I got. And he just kind of really stood out. He seemed like a very odd, strange person. And I think maybe that has to do with, for some reason, this was deemed acceptable in the milieu, in the environments he was in, but in the milieu environments I'm in, it would not be deemed acceptable. Um, so I don't really, that goes into some of what led me to, and the main reason, of course, was he just seemed like a good story to me. And that was it. So I don't want to say anymore. I want you to go and check out the Lady Luck Club channel for the interview. That's the Lady Luck Club channel. And check out the interview there. Seems to have gotten some pretty good numbers. All right, that's it. And this has been, I am, of course, Albert Lanier, and this has been Outro, the show of shows, the show about shows, signing out. Bye, folks. Go Cubs and go Red Sox.